Alright, YouTube, it's time to talk about Trump's misstep, so-called. Not really, but I'll analyze it further. Regarding what he said about Hillary Clinton and the Supreme Court and the Second Amendment, that's got everybody so much up in arms. You go on CNN, and the first paragraph of their article is all about how, oh, Trump's calling for violence, Trump's evil, Trump's whatever, hates women. And then they, of course, go on to actually put what his campaign staff and Pence and what Trump himself clarifying this have said, which is what he was calling for was activism. Now, as an unbiased observer, as someone who will vote for Gary Johnson, I believe that. He has verbal incapabilities that have plagued him every time he doesn't use a teleprompter. That being said, I can respect him more for at least being able to go off script, having an original thought, even if those thoughts are incoherent, at least they're his. It's something Hillary Clinton has never done in the history of her political career. Except when giving testimony, in criminal cases or potential criminal cases against her. So I guess that's to his credit. But yes, he does have a tendency to misspeak, and sometimes what he says isn't entirely clear. What people who already think Trump is a violent, bigoted race warrior heard is, hey, somebody with a gun who supports the Second Amendment should take a shot at Hillary Clinton. But that's not what he said. Nothing about what he said is even close to that. What he was saying is that Hillary would be, if elected, would be unstoppable in stacking the Supreme Court with anti-Second Amendment judges. By the way, something to which I fundamentally agree. I wonder whether the Republican-controlled House, which will remain Republican-controlled, would allow her to appoint anybody, or whether it would just stonewall and take its own political risks just to stop her. I have my doubts about whether they'd be willing to bend over, unless it was a true moderate she was putting on the court. And if Ginsburg dies, of course, she was a far lefty anyway, so what, literally, in Hillary's words, what fucking difference would it make? It wouldn't, because she couldn't find anybody further left than Ginsburg. I fundamentally agree with the premise. What he says then is, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about it if she's elected, which is partially true. Of course, you do still have lobbies. You do still have the Constitution in effect. You do still have other Supreme Court justices, and of course you have the legislature capable of impeaching or creating a constitutional amendment or what has to be done. Whether this is possible under our highly polarized political climate or not is a totally different story. But the means are technically, legally there for that to be done. To remove the president from power, to patch up any attacks they make on the Constitution as needed. And what he said further is, oh yeah, unless some of these Second Amendment folks can stop her. Now, what that entails is not, well, they're going to stop her by taking up arms and killing her. What that entails is they're going to stop her by turning out to vote for Trump. I would assume that's the person he would prefer them vote for. And the NRA has endorsed him, of course. By turning out at high enough numbers against a foe that they think is strongly against their basic, philosophical beliefs on the right to keep and bear arms, that she would be prevented from actually winning the election. She wouldn't get in the White House. And if thereafter she were to get in, they could still stop her by donating to political causes that would set themselves against her, by writing letters to representatives and to senators, by protesting outside the Supreme Court, by making legal challenges against anything she tries to do. And that's what he was talking about. It's fairly straightforward. Only a person who already thinks that Trump is a desperately violent and unhinged individual would choose, I think, to believe that this rather innocuous statement meant anything else. The fact is, they all jumped to conclusions and said, oh, it means he wants to butcher her. And, of course, he's going to fire back and say, dishonest media. And I tend to agree with him on this one. I think that they are being rather dishonest. That would be like the media crucifying Hillary Clinton, which they almost never do. They're loath to do it, for some minor misstep, making a mountain out of a molehill. Now, there's plenty of actual mountains to choose from, but if they fixated on, oh, she chewed her bubble gum too long or too loudly, and this is obviously evidence that she's the Antichrist, which is about the same level of stupidity and ridiculousness that we see in how they're treating what Trump said regarding the Second Amendment, then obviously that would be rather dishonest. Yeah, maybe she did chew her gum the wrong way, but was it a criminal act? Was it an incitement to violence? No. What Trump said was not an incitement to violence. And what Hayden said, the former director of the CIA, who has endorsed Hillary and been trotted out across every possible branch of the Hillary-friendly media, what he said was even funnier. He said, "You're not just responsible for your words, but how they're perceived." No, you're not. Uh, no, really, you're not. You can tell that you were in the CIA and that you weren't actually in law by believing such an erroneous thing to be the case. This, I think, shows the bias of the former director of the CIA and shows us that the bureaus are often run by incompetent individuals. By the way, the CIA is still incompetent. Even if Trump is elected, it will still be incompetent. Don't kid yourselves. They'll be incompetent forever. Takes them 6 days to perform an investigation into why the vanilla ice cream wasn't, the right color or something like that, and then they say, oh, it was swamp gas. That's what the CIA is known for, so I don't expect competent individuals to be heading it. Unlike the FBI, they're halfway competent. Hell, the NSA is more competent than the CIA most of the time. That's sad. The EPA is more competent than the CIA. That's sad too. It's probably even more sad. But no, Trump was not inciting violence. It's just fruitless to even think that that's the case. Quite clearly, people in their own bias, perceiving him to be an evil bigot and a despot, are projecting that sort of image upon him because of their own sort of opinion regarding him without actually looking at what he said. Half these people probably didn't even read the full quote. They just read what they heard in some branch of the media, some little snippet that made it sound even more suspect, and they start tweeting it around. But it could turn around and bite them in the asses, because what this election may end up coming down to, if Trump's numbers don't improve, because he is behind, not by 15 points, not by 10 points, but he is a few points behind. That is admittedly true. What it could end up coming down to in a fairly close match is turnout. And in that, I think Hillary has the biggest disadvantage of all. I've spoken of some of her disadvantages already. Less youth appeal, potentially. Apparently bad state of health doesn't help. It's perceived of as untrustworthy as opposed to Trump, who is perceived of as scary or bigoted or unhinged, which is a harder moniker to shed. If it comes down to a test of who can turn out the vote more, I give Trump an advantage. Not as big an advantage as I would give him if after the debates he completely verbally annihilates her. But even without that, if they draw even, I would still give him potentially that slight advantage. Specifically because the sort of groups that Trump is more heavily associated with probably will, especially against somebody like Hillary with the things that she said in her past, they will turn out at massive numbers. Whereas the average Hillary fan, other than the correct the record shills, they seem to be in a state of perpetual malaise. They don't show up to her rallies. They're apparently not donating much to her. Most of her money just comes from banks and corporations. Trump raised $80 million almost entirely in grassroots donations. That's actually pretty damn good. For a campaign that was first just self-funded and now is 99% grassroots, that's astonishing. And it shows me that at the very least his base is energized. Hillary's, I don't even know that they exist. I don't know what base she is claiming to have. I honestly, at this point, something funny is going up and we're living in La La Land a little bit. Because when I see these pictures of Hillary rallies with 50 to 100 people at them, and Trump selling out stadiums, yet supposedly Trump is horrible, his campaign is dying, and yet he's got 30,000, 35,000 people watching him. His opponent is hard-pressed to pull together 1,000 people to do that. When he is outraising her, at least in grassroots donations, by an enormous margin, and she's only ahead in fundraising because of banks and corporations, something's a little bit off here. I don't say poll rigging, but I think that there's some sort of hidden demographic bullshit going on here that hasn't been fully accounted for. I think part of it is the fact that a lot of Hillary's people, a small minority of her fans, are extremely, extremely frenetic. They're like, must get woman into White House, must get someone named Clinton or with a D after the name into the White House. But 99% of her fans don't really give a shit. They're not funding her. They say, yeah, I'll vote for her. When they do the poll, they say, yeah, I vote for Hillary. But at the end of the day, are they assured to actually even turn up at all? None of them seem excited. other than like Elizabeth Warren, who half the time she's more incoherent than Trump is. Look what she said about Trump. Oh, he's threatening her because he's a coward who can't stand that he's being beaten by a girl. How stereotypical and stupid can you get? That's just, it doesn't even make sense. Elizabeth Warren is probably the least credible person who can be going after him right now. What they need to do is try to get Bernie Sanders to do that. I don't think he's willing. Bernie Sanders makes a tweet from time to time about how we must defeat Trump. Other than that, he's not campaigning for Hillary. He's not making any rallies for her. He's not appearing alongside her. He said, yeah, I endorse her, and then he disappeared. He's back here buying a new cabin for, I think it was $400,000. Now, I thought he had a bunch of debt and really didn't have that much personal wealth. I wonder where all that campaign money went. Yeah, it went into buying his new McMansion on the side of a lake so that he can go play, I don't know, Tolstoy or something like that. That's basically what he did. He vexed people with this during his campaign. He shilled them. He siphoned money from them. And when it was clear that he was losing, he stuck it in and he took that money and just upped his own campaign salary or something, apparently, because he seems to have wandered in quite a bit of money. I don't know how he could have possibly done that. Because, again, supposedly he had a few $100,000 in holdings, he had tens of thousands in debt. Now all of a sudden he's buying a $400,000 cabin or resort home or whatever it is, a second home. Where did the money come from, Bernie? Did you get a little kickback from Hillary Clinton? I'm going to say probably yes. All respect lost, by the way. If he runs again, he won't be getting my fucking vote. Especially after, why would he endorse Hillary? He was an independent before. He never had to endorse Hillary. He could have just said, oh, I was an independent when I got into this race. I've always caucused with the Democrats, but I was never a Democrat. Why the fuck should I endorse you, Madam Clinton? He should have done that. Then he should have walked off, laughing the whole way. Ha, look at all the money that I made off those stupid socialists donating to my campaign. All this grassroots support is great. I'm going to go buy a second home and a third home, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to buy Venezuela. He should do something like that, and he'd be much better off. Because at least he wouldn't have the besmirching on his political record of, gave up, endorsed opponent who he had said was completely reckless, and then wandered off into the sunset to go and be rich back in his home state. Because we don't know Bernie as the rich dude. We know Bernie as the dude who lives in a little bit of an upper middle class home. Honestly, just sort of walks around, eats his ice cream, and you can say, hey, Bernie, and he'll say, hey, back. Unless he's really grumpy at the moment, contemplating capitalism or something. But no, what Trump said has nothing to do with assassination. It has nothing to do with violence. All you have to do is look at what he said. Where does he encourage violence? He's talking about the problem being taken care of. The problem is not Hillary Clinton. The problem is specifically referring to the SCOTUS people that she might try to stack the court with. Well, he's obviously not insinuating, people should just go walk up and kill the Supreme Court. No, he's encouraging them to vote in the election, and if she should win, then they should immediately activate themselves and get together and do whatever it takes to convince Congress to stand in her way. And that's all. That's about all. Peace out.